Professor Lady here. Just a reminder, I'm the co-author of Adopting Older Children. You can get a copy of this on eBay or just write to me and I'll send you a copy. In this second video, I want to talk about the characteristics of children who are legally free to be adopted and the importance of thinking about these characteristics in terms of what is the best match for you and your family and for these children who are eligible for adoption. And the different characteristics involve race, ethnicity, age, sibling, being part of a sibling group, etc. So I would recommend you think about this before you make your first appointments with the adoption agency, but they'll help talk you through and think about what type of child you want to adopt, what type of child would be best for your family. They'll help you through that, but here's some things to think about before that first appointment. First, of course, you want to think about whether you want to adopt an older child domestically or intercountry adoption. So one of the first things, of course, that comes up with intercountry adoption is culture. You want to think about, do you want to bring a child from a different culture over into a new country where they may have to learn a whole new language and they will have to learn a whole new culture? Does your background, maybe have a particular cultural background, that would facilitate this adjustment for the child? Is this something that you can work with, something that you can handle? Are you prepared to adopt a child from a completely different culture? You have to prepare for this and think about this very, very carefully. Because if you're going to bring a child from a different culture, a different country, you must learn about their culture and make sure that you have the appropriate resources for them, and that they're coming into a welcoming home and community in terms of them retaining what's very special about their home culture. And that includes language, of course. Excuse me. And this goes for domestic adoption as well. So we want to think about culture, race, ethnicity. What kind of community do you live in? What is your family's cultural, ethnic, racial background? Do you understand other cultures, have knowledge of other various groups' histories in America, historical legacies of marginalization, oppression, prejudice, racism, etc. You need to be aware of all of these things if you're going to adopt across racial boundaries, ethnic boundaries, as much as we would all like to say, oh, everything will work out and we're all Americans. Yes, that's true, but children of color have a different experience often in this country, even at a young age, than perhaps you did growing up, or the children who are already in your home have growing up. So part of this is also the differences in urban, suburban, rural culture. Are you prepared to bring a child who's only known country life into a big city, and vice versa? Take a child from the city who's always known urban life into the country. This is going to be a shock for them. So you have to think about these things, and you have to be culturally competent in this process. You absolutely have to think about your own capacity, what community you're bringing children into, and how you're going to help them retain and appreciate and love their culture and their ethnic history and celebrate differences. It's very important. Um, okay, so other considerations of the children, the characteristics of children who are legally free to be adopted, or maybe you're doing foster adopt, you want to think about these considerations with foster care as well. Now, this is related to ethnicity and culture, but it's also a legal consideration. Children with a Native American background, if they're a member of a tribe, they are legally protected under something called the Indian Child Welfare Act. And other members of the tribe have first jurisdiction in terms of foster care and adoption of a child belongs, who is from a tribal community. If there is no one within the tribe to foster or adopt the child, then the broader Native American community can be considered. If there are no prospective parents there, then prospective parents outside of that community will be considered. But this is a federal law, and you have to learn about this. You have to be very informed when adopting a child of Native American background. Okay, so other considerations about the characteristics of children. Some children have certain special needs, and that might be behavioral, mental health, cognitive, developmental, medical. So you have to find out about these special needs if the child is considered to have special needs. I'll tell you one thing. Sometimes children are labeled with special needs, and they don't really have a specific disability. They're labeled special needs because it is harder to get them placed into a permanent adoptive home. Older children of African American background are sometimes labeled as special needs because there are fewer prospective adoptive families for them. Sadly, there is disproportionality in terms of the percentage of African American children in foster care and legally free to be adopted compared to the percentage of African American children in society in general. And there are fewer prospective adoptive parents for a variety of reasons. So if you see that label special needs, it might actually not mean a specific medical or emotional behavioral disability. It may be that they've been designated special needs because they're in a group that is hard to place. Okay, so that's just one thing to ask about. If a child has special needs, you may be eligible for special payments to help cover their medical costs. And this goes for being a foster caregiver as well as an adoptive parent. Most children in the foster care system, and once they're adopted, will have Medicaid. So they will have insurance coverage, which is good. But you have to think about your capacity for a special needs child. Do you have the time to take them to many medical appointments if they need that? Do you have the capacity to care for a child who is in a wheelchair, or who can't speak or has a major developmental disability, or who has autism, or who has severe ADHD, or what have you? So you have to learn, of course, the medical history of children that you're considering adopting, and also look at their profiles and see what their special needs are, if they have particular special needs. Another consideration is their age and the age of your children in the home, the children you already have in the home. I would strongly suggest preserving birth order so that if you have young children in the home, you're not bringing in an older sibling, adopting an older child who will not become big sister, big brother. That disrupts birth order. But there is disagreements about that. There is different thinking about that, and sometimes it works out. But it's something you have to consider. Um, do you want your adoptive child to all of a sudden be the oldest child of all the siblings? Um, then something else you want to consider is their relationship with their biological families. So you may do foster adopt, right? Foster care givers who are in the foster adopt program, as I said in the first video, have first priority after relatives, most likely, to adopt children in their home who they're caring for as foster parents once they are legally available, eligible to be adopted because those parental rights have been severed. So if you're doing foster adopt, you're going to get to know the family situation very well, the biological family's situation. Now, if you're adopting a child you've never cared for before as a foster caregiver, you need to learn about the family situation. Children are in foster care through no fault of their own. There's some misunderstanding that children are juvenile delinquents. They're in foster care because they're bad kids or they've been involved with the law or something like that. It's not the case. Their families have some kind of issue where they can no longer care for them. But 75% of maltreatment cases is neglect. All right. The family has very few financial resources. There's neglect going on. Hopefully, they can get the help that they need to be reunited with their children, but that doesn't always happen. Another big reason could be substance misuse, and they're not able to get the treatment and recovery, achieve that to get their children back. Now, in 25% of the cases, there's abuse, physical, mental, sexual abuse. So all this to say, you have to understand the reason, of course, that the child is either coming into foster care or is now legally free to be adopted. So in some cases, it will be appropriate for that child to continue having some kind of relationship with the birth parents or extended family members or siblings. In some cases, that's not healthy for the child at all. So you want to ask about this. What are the expectations? Does the birth family, is it safe for the child to be in continued contact with them? There may be children who have no contact with any family, and that's not an issue. You have to think about what you're comfortable with. But once you're the adoptive parent, you decide how much contact they have with family members. I have a friend who adopted an adorable little girl, and once a month, the little girl spends time with her birth mother and her grandparent, her grandmother, who she was very close to. And they may go to the movies, they may go to the playground. And I'm not sure if the adoptive mom is present during these meetings, but that's something you have to think about. What is in the best interests of the child? If you're not comfortable with certain needs of the child in terms of contact with the biological family, that match may not be the best for you. So that's something to think about, their relationship with their birth parents and their birth family. So it's very important to think about these different characteristics and considerations in getting a match with the child that's best for you and your family. Now, with older child adoption, a lot of the kids, maybe 12 or older, will have a say as well about the family that they want to be adopted into. Some children prefer a single mother because of perhaps some kind of abuse or neglect they experienced with their birth father. They feel more comfortable being with a single mother, or vice versa, right? With a single dad, but it's more often a single mom. Some children want two parents. Some children want parents of the same ethnic, racial, or cultural background. Of course, it is very important to consider the needs of the child themselves who is eligible for adoption. And you'll learn that from the adoption caseworker. Something else you want to do is, um, in considering whether it's a good match, is talk to the foster caregivers. So if they were in foster care before coming into foster care in your home, or you're adopting a child who you've never cared for as a foster parent, talk to the past foster caregivers, learn about the child, their behaviors, their interests, their schooling, their needs, all of that, and that will help you decide as well. So the matching process is very important. And just remember that you don't only consider a child who lives like right within your town who's eligible for adoption. You don't have to limit your search to your immediate community. You could be looking across the state, and you could be looking across the country for a good match with an adoptive child who has those characteristics and who is just a good fit for you and your family. So, there's a lot to think about and consider, but it's best to start thinking about these things before your first visit to the adoption agency. And we'll talk about agencies and the process in the next video. So again, congratulations for considering adoption and seeking out information. It's going to be an amazing journey. Don't forget to check out the next video and the previous ones if you haven't watched them so far. Please like and subscribe if you benefited from the information in this video. Take care. Bye-bye.